Thank you for joining us on KTLA.com, KTLA Facebook, and the KTLA Plus app. I'm Colton Von Pertz in Sky 5. We are over this pursuit of this Foothill Transit vehicle that has been stolen from the Foothill Transit Department. CHP just took over the pursuit, the West Valley division of CHP. They are one of our agencies, or one of our departments in the CHP up here, and they talk about pursuits a lot on their social media. But this started in the Pomona area and has now made its way through Glendale. Glendale PD took over the pursuit, and now we are in the west end of the San Fernando Valley right now. This vehicle's going about 95 miles an hour. You can see it with its white and amber lights flashing. We know there's at least a driver in there. I haven't heard about any passengers, but CHP does have multiple units in this pursuit. Great thing about CHP is they pretty much own these freeways in terms of their patrols, and they can kind of leapfrog and hand off as necessary, as if in a relay race, to keep up with this vehicle as it goes at these 90-mile-an-hour rates, just passing by these vehicles, going about the standard rate of traffic right now, 65, 70 miles an hour. They're looking like they're going slow compared to this guy in that number 2 lane, 100 miles an hour right now, going through about Fallbrook Avenue and 101 North right now, 101 northbound, coming up on Mulholland Drive. It's okay, I just pulled up the Facebook live stream. Coming up on Valley Circle right now, 95 miles an hour in that number 1 lane. Very dangerous speeds on these freeways. The freeways are set at speed limits for a reason, a lot of that being the conditions of the roads, the turns, things like that, and for other reasons as well, as drivers aren't equipped or trained on how to drive at high speeds like this, and so at some point we see these drivers outdrive their talent in some of these vehicles. It looks like maybe a Ford sedan. It's a little hard to tell. Yep, it looks like it's a Ford. A Toyota Camry, my assignment desk editor is telling me. He has a little bit bigger of a monitor. A Foothill Transit vehicle. These are used for supervisors to move personnel around, all sorts of different things by the transit agencies. CHP now in pursuit. Good thing about this in some sense is the high visibility of this vehicle with those flashing lights. It's going to get the eye of those drivers that this vehicle's passing, and might encourage them to be a little more heightened and look at their surroundings and get out of the way of this vehicle as it continues to speed up to about 100 miles an hour now. Still northbound 101 coming up on Parkway Calabasas area. We're in the Calabasas area now for sure as we continue westbound on the 101. Soon, if we keep going this way, we'll start hitting the Ventura area. But we'll keep it live here on Sky 5 as we follow this pursuit of this stolen vehicle out of Pomona. Pomona PD first in pursuit. Then Glendale took over with their airship as well. And now CHP West Valley has taken over the pursuit from them. All the way over to that number 3 lane now. Still going about 95, 100 miles an hour, just passing those vehicles. And those vehicles look like they're in slow motion, that's for sure. Into the number 4 lane, all the way over. Seeing a little bit heavier traffic now as we're working through this kind of pass up here near Lost Hills Road off of the 101. Now this makes it a little more difficult for the CHP as when you have units like this with their lights and sirens going, the general public is taught in driving school to pull over to the right side of the road, and if they're jumping through the number 3 lane like this, people in those number 1 and 2 lanes, wow, just missing that car. We've been over there just in time there. But those drivers in number 1 and 2 lanes are going to naturally want to move over to the right side of the road, but then they see a CHP unit in the lane they're supposed to go into, and it gets really confusing. So luckily, those CHP officers are managing their lights well, turning them off as they kind of go around those slower vehicles in those faster lanes, not to confuse those drivers, and then continue on with the pursuit when it's safe to do so by lighting up the vehicle once again. Now into that number 3 lane, just kind of weaving in and out of the traffic here as we enter Agora Hills. 101 near Chesborough Road here in Agora Hills, and we're just making our way now towards the 23 as we continue on here. Luckily, this time of night, very light traffic, not a lot of vehicles for this stolen vehicle and its suspect driver to kind of have to worry about weaving around or jumping around, but now flashing their lights, turning off those headlights, very dangerous as they make their way into that number 3 lane, passing those cars on the right side, just trying to avoid every car possible and stay as far away from those CHP officers. But CHP officers are right on his or her tail, pretty much saying, hey, we're not going anywhere, we're going to follow you till this ends. That's one thing that CHP does. Once they take over the pursuit, they rarely hand it off to another agency, and they follow it until it comes to an end. So they're going to stick with this, even if they have to hand it off to another division like the Ventura office up here possibly. They will do that as this continues on. CHP has a lot of officers, a lot of different offices in the area, and they train extensively on how to do these pursuits safely and have those fresh sets of eyes, the rested driver in that primary vehicle that's right behind that vehicle. It's a very hard role to be in as an officer. I can tell you from doing a pursuit course, when your eyes are trained on that bumper of that vehicle in front of you, it's easy to get exhausted because you're just so focused on managing your speed, managing the traffic around you. We're over 100 miles an hour right now, very dangerous speeds that those officers are having to deal with as they follow this Toyota. Now, something that happens talking to officers that have been in pursuit is once you start getting exhausted and you start being that primary vehicle for too long, you can kind of get tunnel vision or bumper lock, as my former coworker and reporter Tim Lynn has always told me about. And you just get so focused on that bumper, you start forgetting about the other vehicles, the other situations around you, and that becomes a very dangerous situation. So that's why we see agencies like the CHP as well as others switch out that primary vehicle pretty often so that they have a new set of nerves and a fresh set of eyes on that vehicle so that those officers can drive as safe as possible and keep the public safe as possible as well. We're still working our way to the north and west here on the 101 northbound, going through Westlake Village right now. Now, how do we stop a pursuit is something that we're always asked, or how does the police department stop a pursuit? A few different ways that the departments will use. One of the simplest is just waiting for it to end, or for the vehicle to run out of gas, things like that. If someone's driving more dangerously or needs to be ended sooner, the CHP as well as all the other agencies have tactics in place to help with that, including the pit maneuver, the pursuit intervention technique as it's referred to, and that's when a cruiser will pop up on the back corner of one of these vehicles, bump it, spin that car out of control, disables the vehicle, and then the suspect is more easily apprehendable when that vehicle is disabled from that kind of spin out that it does. Another option would be a spike strip, and those are retractable strips that all the cruisers hold. And what the officers will do is throw that out in front of the vehicle and then pop those tires with the hollow pointed tubes that are in that strip. And those tubes go with the vehicle. They make that puncture into the tires, deflate those tires, making it a lot harder for the suspect to drive. We saw a great example of that earlier in this week with a vehicle in pursuit. All 4 tires ended up falling off of that vehicle. And that can take a little while. It can go really fast. Just depends on the type of tire, the type of vehicle, and how the driver is driving. And so that's an option as well. We typically don't really talk about when or how those are going to happen too much, just to give those officers an element of surprise as this continues on. We haven't heard much about that, but another thing they have to consider in all that is the speeds and the consistency of the driving. You don't want to pop any civilian vehicle tires, and you don't want to do a pit maneuver and throw this vehicle into another car, into a house, anything like that, injure the public or the officer or the suspect. So they are very particular in the speeds and in the situations where they'll use those different techniques to bring a pursuit to an end. But right now we're still content going 101 northbound in about Thousand Oaks, coming up on Moore Park Road, exit 44 if you're familiar with the area. And it just seems like this driver's content to go on 101 North right now. It started probably on the 210, made its way to the 134, and has now made its way onto the 101. They all kind of connect very easily as you make your way westbound through Los Angeles. And now we're going to be working into that Ventura County area. We still see CHP behind this vehicle. They've started doing that handoff with another office as this continues on. So we're just going to continue to follow this from the sky in Sky 5 as the night goes on here now in Thousand Oaks. Not in this ship, sorry. Yeah, I'll keep you posted. Now this pursuit by CHP is still continuing on here on the 101 northbound. in Camarillo now. We've made our way all the way into Ventura County. Ventura CHP Moore Park has taken over the pursuit, and they are kind of staging units all over the place depending on where this goes. They have different tactics that they're ready to do. Still going about 90 miles an hour right now, light traffic. Camarillo Springs Road and the northbound 101 freeway right now in that number 1 lane. All the way over to the number 3, kind of straddling that 2 and 3 lane. We're dropping down just a little bit under the clouds right now. There is a marine layer up here in the Ventura area, so we're going to have to adapt to that just a little bit as we continue on here. Still keeping a safe distance so that those airships from the police department can monitor this a lot closer as well. Hey, if it's easier to go on the other side or something, I'm fine with that than following him. $90 miles an hour, still westbound, northwestbound on the 101. Pleasant Valley Road, Santa Rosa Road is where we're at here in Camarillo. Driver's just content to keep going. We're not sure of the fuel situation on board or anything like that, but at these speeds, it's a little tough for these vehicles to go. Now, vehicles slowing down quite a bit now. Something that just happened that we weren't really able to talk about is a good spike strip. Car coming up to do a pit maneuver. Vehicle slamming on the brakes. Now we'll see what happens here. Stopping on the freeway. That CHP unit was ready to do a pit maneuver. They had a good spike on one of the tires at least. That happened on a bridge nearby. Now this is a standoff, 101 freeway northbound shutdown here at Flynn Road here in Camarillo. Driver coming out, hands up, facing those officers, turning around. They're going to have that driver step away from the vehicle, hands on their head. They're going to lift up their shirt just to make sure that there are no weapons in that waistband or anything like that. And then they're going to have that driver face away from them once again and slowly walk their way back to those officers. Officers still holding that position of advantage and concealment right now. Time is on their side, and they have that air unit over the head as well, calling what's going on so that those officers can focus on taking the suspect into custody and then clearing that vehicle. So the spike strip and then that threat of a pit maneuver was enough to get this suspect to give up here now. So, what's up? Oh, yeah. Wow. Watch out, there are... That was insane. Vehicle has been cleared by the CHP. Suspect has been taken into custody, successful into this pursuit here, 101 at Flynn Road in the Camarillo area by the CHP. This pursuit started once again in the Pomona area, made its way all the way